welcome to the Green Island Podcast. I'm Bernard Sheehan, your host, joined as always with James Sheehan, and we are the authors of the novel Hard Border. Hard at work on the next one, but would definitely appreciate you folks going out and giving that one a whirl. We're also on YouTube here, obviously, and so please like and subscribe and follow us on X. James, thanks for joining. We want to talk here and just kind of jump right into something that caught our eye out on Netflix, this new program called Bodkin, which is set in Ireland. It's the first new production that's like a non-documentary from the Obamas, and it's interesting to see that set in Ireland, and it's pretty interesting, kind of a murder mystery. Like, I'll just give the basic premise. This is all in the first 5 minutes, so it's no spoilers. That you've got a U.S. podcaster out of Chicago who's goes over and wants to look at the disappearance of 3 people that happened 20 years ago at essentially a kind of like a Halloween type of festival, and then goes down the rabbit hole dealing with local folks. This is set in a fictional town called Bodkin in West Cork. He's paired up with an Irish woman who's kind of like a hard journalist who left Ireland years ago, and also an assistant, and they're just kind of going around, really trying to peel back the onion here. And everybody, of course, because it's a small Irish town, is against it. They don't want people to really kind of be dredging things up, but it's also part of that Irish culture too, right? Who are you? What are you doing? And why are you looking into our stuff? So it's kind of, from that point of view, it's pretty interesting to see. And, just wanted to touch on it here because there's a couple of episodes in it, and it's not horrible. It's pretty good.
Ireland, but it's so cliche that it's kind of driving me a bit insane. And maybe I have some PTSD as well from Ireland, but it's just like it's just too Irish, if that makes sense. And it's like old Ireland. It's not like new Ireland. I kind of classify old Ireland as, say, 1980s, 1990s, where the sets are dark, the houses are dark, they're not done up. Now, I know there's a few others, like they do bring them up, a few places that are kind of up to spec, we'll call it, and they're looking into kind of modern, businesses around the place, such as, wind farms and data centers and stuff like that. But for the overall, the sets are old, and it's all farmland and stuff like that. Now, that's maybe just to show the authenticity, and maybe I'm a little negative and biased, but I mean, it's almost burned, like, seriously. I was just kind of, through episode 3, I tried to watch more of it. And, my wife is kind of always saying, James, let's watch some movie shows at night. Let's watch some movies at night. And I'm just like, well, we don't really like the same thing, She's a millennial, and she likes kind of that more fluffy garbage crap. And I kind of like more adventure and action and, Roadhouse, for example, or something like that,
Right.
But I'm like, okay, let's, you told me that we were going to do this podcast, and I'm like, okay, let's get into it. She couldn't even get through the first episode,
Okay.
and she was 100%, she's 100% Irish like I am. I mean, we're not Conan O'Brien 100% Irish. Our parents are actually from Ireland. That's where we met. We're both expats. And the reason why we met is because, we kind of, the Irish don't let you in. Like, you can be friends and maybe you don't want to be friends with them at the end, but it's hard to break that. They have lifelong friends, and it's not to say they're not friendly. They're super friendly and all that, but just to show this little town. But man, it was just, all the names are just pure Irish names. It's kind of just like, no Michaels in there, no Jameses, it's all Seamus.
There's
this,
a Seamus,
Sean,
yeah.
Sean that, and, blah, 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 Deirdre and Dermot. And it's just like, there's a few normal names in there too, Irish names are all based on saints' names. So it's like, there should be a few, it's like, and then every slang term that you've ever heard in Irish, it's like they forced it in.
Yep.
It's just like, I know I do like, and then like the singing at the pubs and everything like that. It's just like, dude, I mean, I've lived there on and off for 20 years, like a majority, and then we spent every summer of our lives there, and all our relatives are there. It's not like a joke, like we're the only ones that went to America. And it was just so, it's hard to get through, because it's just like, God, it's, because I just see the red flag pop up. Maybe you weren't as entrenched in it as I was, Bern, but it's it's every little kind of slang term. They're just like forcing it. It's like you didn't need to say that.
Yeah,
Talk properly. This is not how the Irish talk.
yeah,
It's kind of just like you're kind of putting a little spin on everything. Now I know they kind of picked probably the place West Cork. It's a made up town, I believe, because
it
I've never
is.
heard of it.
No, it's a
But
made up town.
West Cork probably has the strongest accent in Ireland by far that you can actually understand. If you go over to Kerry, it's probably stronger, but you can't understand them.
Right.
Like our uncle, the butcher, in the last episode we mentioned, it was hard to understand them because they talk so fast and they have. But Cork accent is more like they love to sing their what's called, and they're
Hmm.
lovely people. Like I love the Cork people; they're really nice. But it's so they picked like the best place to kind of have that full Irish accent. But it was just they've gone just it's just too far. It would be and it's kind of nice to see like there's this one Irish girl who's the kind of, as you said, the not spoiling it, but she's kind of the real journalist, and she's from London, and like she hates Ireland for some reason, and hey, to a degree joined the club,
Yeah.
but and she's kind of solid in it, but she's it's kind of it's still too much. It's just like I just was kind of a little annoyed. It's hard to get through where I probably would stop,
Yeah.
and I never stop on anything like because I'm always looking for a good watch, but it's just like I just blew 3 hours and I'm just like it's but they are getting to like the heart of what the Irish, or at least should we say the corrupt Irish, is like. You can't trust the cops, you
Right.
know it's all kind of underhanded secrecy and stuff like that. So the premise of it is good, but just it's almost overacted, and it's kind of like I'm just wondering how Obama got into this. Is he kind of just playing the old like the Joe Biden, like I'm so Irish? I mean, Joe Biden, we did a whole piece on him in the clips you can find where it's just like, dude, he came over in 1850. I mean, technically, there's probably not even Irish in him anymore.
Yeah.
And Obama came over. I think they had to find where his relatives are. It's like the same time period. I mean, Obama's almost more Irish than Joe Biden, which isn't, and of course, now he has like a petrol station named after him and all this crap. It's like, they don't name anything after us after we built all their private hospitals and upgraded their entire healthcare system. No, they stole all our money instead. But you get a guy to come over here and drink a Guinness and do a tour, and they're calling everything after him. So anyway, that's a side note, but that's kind of my thoughts on Bodkin. But I was immersed in it so aggressively beyond, Burn. You were popping in and out and kind of got a reprieve, but I've never seen that sort of stuff, like the sing-alongs, and
Yeah.
it's kind of all the folk crap. It's you go to Temple Bar, you'll get good sing-alongs and stuff, but you won't get the dingy Irish where they're all singing and stuff. That's old school. It doesn't happen anymore. It's kind of, if you did it in 1980s, that might be somewhat resembling, but this is modern day. It doesn't stack up from my standpoint.
Well, I think you'll get a sing along maybe out in Dingle, and this is kind of Munster based. Obviously, it's as we mentioned, it's West Cork. It's actually shot in a town called Union Hall, which is kind of just east of Skibbereen. So it's down that way. But yeah, I know there's a lot of like Irish cliches in there, and I think that they're going trying to make it quote unquote as authentic as they can. One of the things I liked in the first episode, they went to a pub and it was like, this isn't a pub for locals. This is a pub for you Americans who come through because this is what you imagine the pubs will look like. We're going to find the real pub. And like you say, it was kind of run down and, everybody was in there just kind of shooting the shit and it wasn't as pretty, but to me that seemed pretty authentic from the standpoint of again kind of where it was set and looking at the town itself. If you're going through kind of Cork and Kerry, you're going through like those towns like every 10 miles or something. You know what I mean? You kind of have to go through them to get onto the other side because down that way you don't necessarily have like those new expressways. So I kind of like that aspect of it. But as you said, to me it was, yes, there's corruption going on here, and the cops are there to cover things up more than actually provide justice. And it just seemed like that side of it it just doesn't kind of come out as much, right? in popular culture. Again, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about has been all nice and sugary, and it's like Quiet Man, or you know whatever, what's his name's daughter, that one that was set in Cary, kind of over by Tralee Golf Club. So it's just like that kind of stuff. Ryan's daughter, that's the one I was thinking of. So you have those kind of really those pictures of Ireland that's just like all beautiful, and it's everybody is great, and but there was a little bit of that, but there was also kind of that, like, hey, yes, there's assholes here too, and for every old guy that is kind of a drunk and funny, and is kind of betting on the races or whatever, you've got his or her nephew, his nephew that is a real bastard and a problem, and is got some kind of side hustle going on, whether it's drugs or guns or whatever. And it's just like, okay, this just hadn't been portrayed before. Now the story itself is kind of lame a little bit, and I think from our perspective too, it's a little meta, because here's podcaster going to Ireland. He's American, and he's trying to find his Irish roots a little bit as well. And his last name is Power, and we've got like power in our family. So it just seemed like a lot of it was kind of like real, but hyper real. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't, it was just kind of like, you got the bed and breakfast with the cranky old lady, and that's pretty typical. And it's just, everything is, you've got the chauffeur or the driver who is like never there on time, and he's just kind of doing his own thing, even though he's supposed to be driving you around 24/7. So like, just some of that stuff was, touched on reality, but like you say, maybe that's just kind of old school, and is going away. And now you've got this other guy who comes back from Silicon Valley, and he wants to do, I don't know, was it a wind farm, or it was
No, he
a
wants to do, yeah, what is it, a data center, which good
data
luck,
center?
good
Yeah,
luck. We have a guy who was in the same club as us. I mean, let's say they were targeting him, and they took his $1 billion data center away from him. It took him 15 years to get planning. He had it all ready to go. And then, the banks took the land off of him and sold it to, like, a private equity firm. And he was in jail, and they took all his cash, of course,
of
so
course.
that he couldn't fight in the court. So he was, doing his own cases himself and stuff like that. And again, he couldn't, but they wanted that data center because, like, Ireland is a pure atmosphere for data. It's a cold, rainy environment, which is perfect for data centers because they give off so
Right.
much heat.
Yep.
And so it's like, but I mean, I was thinking, once he said, "Yeah, I'm going to build a data center," I'm saying, "No, you're not. Someone's going to build a data center, but it's not going to be you. You might come with the idea, but they're going to take it off you. Do you
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a nice idea, but I don't care if you're a multi-hundred millionaire, they'll still take it off you. Like, you're not a club member, stuff like that. So it is interesting. And West Cork, I mean, just like looking at the drug part and, like, the kind of the contraband stuff, I mean, that's pretty accurate. I mean, Kerry and Cork is where, drugs are smuggled in, and then across the hard border up in the north and into England, and boom, because the Irish, say, authorities are not as hardcore as the English to get smuggled stuff into the island, if that makes sense,
Yeah. And they
So
talked
the
about
EU,
that too. They talked about going up to the north and bringing things in, and then, oh, Good Friday Accords put a stop to that, and we kind of know that's
sure it did.
not the
Sure it did. No,
reality.
the EU opened it up, actually.
Right.
The ones that they all joined the EU, it's like there was no border,
Well,
and that's the whole premise of the hard border,
that's
it's
the thing.
smuggling stuff across.
And that's exactly the thing, is that this to me is like, it's kind of like a half a step in the direction of what we talk about in the novel, and some kind of the harder truths. But it, again, it's not, it doesn't go all the way. The only thing that is kind of even close is that woman. I've never heard that type of name before. She goes by Dove or something. The
Yes,
hard case, and I
the
just,
reporter girl.
yeah, the
Yes.
reporter, and I just don't see that in real life, other than the standpoint that she left Ireland and hated it and had a bad experience. And kind of has that hard edge of like some of these Irish women, and we know them well. We're related to some of them, so we know that that is kind of like a real type of character. Just that real pain in the ass, always thinks that she's right, and just kind of goes through and is real pushy and does her thing, and is not, again, is not Maureen O'Hara. Maureen O'Hara was like tough and redhead, but still was kind of heart of
From
gold.
Gone with the Wind? No, am I wrong in that? Oh no,
No,
that's the girl from Home Alone.
yeah,
Right?
from Quiet Man, and also she was in Miracle on
That's
34th Street. And
that's
she
right.
actually grew up in Dublin, not far from where our
But
dad grew up.
no one is as much right as a scorned Irish woman. I mean, you think the liberal women are bad. Well, they usually are liberal as well, but I mean, they are like, they're, they're the ones that are telling everybody what to do, whether they have the credentials or not,
Right. Yeah. And
Like,
that's this character, and I thought she played it pretty well. I assume that she is actually an Irish woman. So she is.
but she's the
She
one
did grow
digging
up in Dublin.
deeper because she was scorned. I mean,
Yeah.
that's us in a nutshell. They scorned us, and we're just like, okay, great. Now we'll just expose you for what you guys are. Like everybody else is trapped in the island, and if they expose them, they're screwed.
Right.
One way or another. It's as I said, they'll go to their bank managers. They'll go if anything gets out. But like we're not in Ireland anymore, and she wasn't in, and she's coming back. She's like, no, there's a story here, and of course she's filtering it back to her UK paper,
Right.
which are the guys that would print it because the Irish papers are all owned
Yeah.
by the in some way, shape, or form. So it's like we're all in the same club. So yeah, you do get scorned because you're kind of pissed because at the end of the day, like you went in there with good intentions. They didn't put like you went in according to the book. Remember, I always used to say that we're going to do it by the book, do it by the book, and it's just like, well, we'll get them in court if they don't because we do it by the book, and it's just like shit. We got the court, and the judges are the worst. I mean, again, you think Trump has bad judges? They have nothing on these guys. It's crazy.
Well, that's the thing. It's Ireland's not broken; it's fixed. To borrow a line from talking about
Lovely.
Chicago, it's all a stitch up. It's just
Yep.
they're going to do what they're going to do, and that's the way it is. Everybody's bought and paid
It's
for.
theater.
Yeah,
Yep. Just theater.
it's theater. It's criminal. It's as corrupt as it gets, and that's all there is to it. But again, that's our experience. But I think that this touches on that as well. That
It
like, hey,
does.
that corruption is there. Here's a small town, but you take that a step out and and look at it from our perspective. It's a small town. It's a small country, is really what it is. And now with immigration taking over 22%, but before that, it was you have a couple million people there. It's essentially a really small town on an island, is what it
A hundred
is.
percent. A hundred
So
percent. And I know they kind of wokeified this Bodkin a bit. There's like a black Irish girl in there, and I'm like, dude, I've been there for 20 years. I've never seen really a black Irish girl with a black accent or an accent. I mean, not to, but I'm just like, I mean, if you saw Africans, they were usually Nigerians, and they're the taxi drivers. Not to say, I mean, they're kicking ass. I mean, the Nigerians actually made it better. Like they're the guys you can actually are honest people to a degree, but they wokeified Bodkin a bit. I guess they have to get on Netflix. I mean, there's no fault to that, but they just have these odd bits and pieces. But as you said, it was just they went to the extreme on a lot of things that like
right.
this isn't Ireland. Ireland's a little softer, but the corruption's right. Like the Garda involved,
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Every local Garda, like I'm sorry, that's just the way it works in Ireland. Like if you're, but like they just took all the cliches and it's like, can you just not talk normally? There's always a line like, a poetry, a poem, like they all Irish love to like use synonyms or whatever, like these sort of lines, but they put in all the dialogue and like they don't
Right.
talk as much. Like it's maybe you'll get a one thing every an hour or two of talking, but every other line is some clever little poetry line that you would hear a quick little phrase or and it's just like they don't talk like that. It's a little too much, and the dark, like I don't know. I just it's painful if you don't live there, if you haven't lived there, because I'm just like, it's not like that. It's to a degree, like the scenery's like that if you're in the country and stuff like that, but like a lot
Yeah.
of that stuff they were doing is just they just crammed too much crap in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just I could it's painful. My wife again could watch everything. Like there's this Irish show that was on Netflix that was very popular. Like I think it was like New People or something. Like this girl wrote it about like teenagers, teenage
Yes. I
problems,
remember that
and
one. Yeah.
the millennials love that stuff. My wife was all loving it. She's like, you should watch this. I'm like, I can't watch that nonsense. It's and then like I hear my wife crying in the room. I thought something happened. She came in. She's like, he didn't invite her to the Debs, and I'm just like, oh my god, you know, it's like
Hilarious.
crazy. But whoever created that, like Netflix threw like $100 million at that, whoever the creator was of that, whoever wrote that to like make more. She had to hand it back. She couldn't come up with anything left. Like it
Yeah.
was a one-hit wonder,
She's got
But
nothing
she pretty
else.
much
Yeah.
just she wrote about herself for
Right.
her things and like so that's why it was real authentic. This is not authentic. This is not even like I mean it's authentic in the phrase that like it's hardcore in Ireland if you kind of stuff, but it's not authentic of how day to day works in Ireland. Like hard
Right.
border is authentic. I
Right.
mean, it's like we don't throw terms in there. People don't talk like that. We don't turn. We might have a few quick phrases, but that's just normal, sort of talking. But this is like every other line. He can't go on a boat without the fisherman saying some like parable or something. I'm just like,
Right.
oh, it's just hard to just imagine,
You don't like hearing everybody saying slancha every time they put like a cup to their mouth or a
A
glass to their mouth.
hundred
I
percent.
mean, that's the thing. It's like I never heard that word in my life until it was like on a Guinness commercial here, and I'm just like, oh, they must have. And now everybody says it. It's just like, what is this? Why is this
They're saying
a
it every
thing?
single time, or every time they're in a pub, there's a sing along. It's
Yeah.
just like that doesn't happen unless there's like a band there and there's Americans. Either like the pub that's in the opening scene, the first pair, was quite reminiscent of our pubs that we would go to, like that we would go say when we were young, and our uncle who was the local butcher would go to and have his 2 pints a day or whatever. Like dark, it's whatever. But those pubs are kind of or the local pub but they're not doing sing-alongs. They're just having a chat and they're going
Right.
home. You know,
Right.
it's rarely ever filled because the towns are not that packed. Do you know what I mean? Like, and not everybody's going every night. It's just it's a little overdone.
Yeah.
It's kind of overcooked by a good bit, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, that was the thing. Some of the stuff, and don't get me wrong, by the end of it, I was kind of like, okay, but I did go through the whole thing. But there were some things there. It's just like, okay, they're driving at night. And it's just like, yes, you captured it because it's freaking dark as can be. There's no lights or anything like that. All you have is your headlights ahead of you and you're going on windy roads. And I've never seen that before. Like even little details like that were kind of like, okay, that's good. That's good to see.
Yes, I would agree.
But then there's other
The
stuff.
scenes are good.
Yeah, there's other stuff where they're going and they go to visit, a priory or like nuns and stuff, and they are the worst. They're just like the most liberal bitches possible. It's just like I don't think that's definitely as unreal as it gets because
It really is. That's
it's
feeding into the wokeism that they're
right.
like doing yoga at the back.
Yeah,
It's like, no, the nuns that are still nuns today are hardcore, like probably the best of the best.
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Of within their religion, like, they don't have to be nuns. They're not really like priests. They can walk, and they don't, and they're there for a reason. But these are just. It was all yeah. That kind of bothered the shit out of me, to be honest with you. And this sort of stuff. It's just like, and they're like throwing in the religion card or whatever a good bit. Now I understand there's like a funeral and there's a priest, but besides that, but just in contrast, Bern, because we did talk about like the gentleman, my wife, we couldn't do one episode of this, so we turned it off. I'm less like, well, crap. Let's show
Before
you
we go
something.
there, if I can just interrupt, what was her breaking point? If you don't mind me asking, what was it that drove her up a wall for somebody who can watch anything, and she's just like, "That's it, I'm out."
It was just, I don't think it could click in.
Okay,
Like, I got up to episode 3 or 4 and I still don't see anything that's worth watching.
Fair.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Fair.
It's kind of like, oh, well, there's a death or there's this, and it's like everybody's lying. And stay tuned and keep putting in hours until you find out who did it. And it's like,
Right.
it's like, and I think it's just the whole because it's like, oh, that's like Granny's house. And, she would bring back, like, we all went to Granny's house and it would be like these scenes of these, but these are like normal people. Like the bed and breakfasts don't look like that anymore. That's 1980s.
Yeah.
There's barely any bed and breakfasts anymore. Everybody's kind of gone to hotels or whatever, like everybody has
Right.
a bit of cash. They
Yep.
don't do bed and breakfasts really anymore,
Yep.
to a
Yep.
degree. It's kind of that has been played out. But so I think she just like, no, this isn't working. So I'm just like, well, let me show you something else,
Yeah.
like she
Okay.
was like, I'm right here I've already watched it twice. I'm just like, well, let me show you just to see. I wanted to see if she would click into this because I'm like, we can never watch the same thing. We
Right.
just can't.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, let me show you this because I just love that show now. Like, I think it's just great. And she was just like, no, she kind of, because she never sees any excitement in her, say, mundane type of watching, it's all the same kind of lovey dovey. And she's like, oh my God, I can't look, I'm blah, blah, blah. She's like, the next day she's talking, she's like, that was probably the best show I've watched in like 2 years,
Yeah.
you know, the
Yeah.
first episode of Gentlemen. She's like, and so every night we're watching another episode, you
Awesome.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
great because, and she's like she likes the main character, like actually the brother, and like we're always chatting about it, and it's good, it's fun, it's kind of there's like that's how hard border is. It's supposed to be fun and like modern times. Everybody's driving like has a bit of money,
Yeah.
they're all wealthy. I know this one, is a big contrast where like they're all broke or whatever, but I mean, it's kind of I don't think the audience really, I like stuff like that,
Gotcha.
so to speak.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And my wife and I were the same way. We've actually started watching The Crown, and we'd never watched it before. So we're like just finished season one, and we know that we've got all of these backlogged and ready to go. But that's just something that's been out there for a while. Somebody said, "Hey, watch it," so we started. But even that is kind of, I like that because it's historical, but that the history is probably 80% wrong. But still, this is
Yeah,
this
that's
is
right.
the thing.
We
Like,
did watch the first season and then we never got back into it, but I heard it actually does get better,
yeah, I'm looking
surprisingly,
forward to the second season, but I know it's an old show. It's probably 10
Yes.
years old now, from the standpoint of where I'm watching it. And this one will be interesting to see if it gets another season. I know you're not going to be watching it, but even if it does, it's not going to be in Ireland, I don't think. It's kind of, it wraps up its story. But I guess taste will vary. The show itself is not that great. Some of the atmosphere I really liked. Like, for example, they've got like their illegal operations are out in a farm, and the barn essentially that they're using, to me, is kind of like, wow, that looks like a barn on one of our relatives, pieces of property.
100%.
So it's
That's where
stuff
the
like
like
that.
again 1980s, or I mean if they didn't
That's
fix up
right.
their barn, but I
Yep.
mean again it just has that 1980s feel where they're mixing in kind of maybe the guy who's building the data center has a cool house overlooking this, and it's all like in the modern, clean new kitchens, blah blah blah. But it's like that's the only set. Everybody else is like living in you know 80s houses, and that's just not the case
Right.
because the premise of Ireland particularly is that they are sheep, and if one gets a new kitchen, everybody has to get a new kitchen. It doesn't matter if it's granny, the kids are going, do you know what I mean?
I do. Yep.
That's the whole premise of Ireland, and most of the houses are new anyways because of the building boom that everybody went bankrupt on. So it's kind of like those houses don't really exist because they wouldn't be able to get away with it because, like you saw the funeral and stuff. I mean, they're all drinking Balmers and stuff like that. I love Balmers. Never saw drinking out of a bottle like that. And
Right.
people like always drinking all the time. Again, playing on cliches. They're not drunk all the time.
Right.
Everybody's not drunk anymore. Kind of it's played out. They're home watching Netflix with 2 pints.
Right. Yep.
It just so that's where the difference of hard border comes in, where it's actually like real Ireland,
That's
not
right.
make believe.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you taking a gander at this. And, again, it was something Irish. Let's take a look and see. And, we got
Yeah, I'll have to
basically
call
two.
you later just see how it ends because I don't think I can put any more time into it.
No problem. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
awesome.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks.
bro.
Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye bye.